Well, Doug, this family is grieving, but they're also on a mission. They're rallying to raise the couple's 4 children, but they also want North Texans to know that Elizabeth's life was so much bigger than how she died.
Elizabeth Arellano was more than just a name in a tragic headline. She was a young woman full of dreams.
Being able to enjoy the wonderful and beautiful human that she was. She will never get to see her kids grow up. She will continue to miss us all of the living.
Living a life that seemed ordinary from the outside, but carried a deep meaning for those close to her. Friends remembered her as kind and caring, someone who never hesitated to offer help. To her family, Elizabeth was the heart of their home, bringing laughter and light into even the most difficult days. She loved simple joys, spending time with her loved ones, sharing stories, and holding on to the values her parents had raised her with. Her life was not one of wealth or fame, but of honesty and resilience. Elizabeth believed in working hard, and those who knew her described her as determined and focused on building a future for herself. She faced challenges, like anyone else, but she met them with quiet strength. People around her often admired her ability to remain calm and thoughtful, even when life tested her. This was Elizabeth before tragedy struck a daughter, a friend, and a young woman whose life held promise. Her story began with hope, but it would soon be pulled into darkness that no one expected. The day she vanished, the day Elizabeth Arellano disappeared, started like any other, with nothing to warn her family of the storm that was about to come. She went about her routine quietly, the way she always did, and no one suspected it would be the last time they would see her safe. That morning, Elizabeth seemed calm, but later, she did not return home as expected. Hours turned into a long, uneasy silence. Phone calls went unanswered, and messages stayed unseen. At first, her family tried to stay positive, thinking she might have been delayed or caught up with something unexpected. But as night fell, worry took over every thought. Her loved ones searched familiar places, called her friends, and hoped for a clue that would explain her sudden absence. What made everything worse was how out of character it was for Elizabeth to vanish without a word. She valued her family deeply and always kept them close. The absence of contact was more than unusual. It was alarming. That single day became the turning point in her life and in the lives of everyone who cared about her. What began as quiet concern soon grew into a nightmare of fear and questions that demanded answers. Family in fear, as the hours stretched into days. Elizabeth Arellano's family found themselves trapped in a cycle of fear and uncertainty. Every ring of the phone made their hearts race, hoping for good news, but dreading the worst. Her parents could not sleep, pacing the house at night, replaying every detail of her last known movements. Her siblings clung to each other, struggling to understand how someone so close could simply vanish. The home that once echoed with Elizabeth's laughter now felt heavy with silence and despair. The family worked tirelessly, reaching out to neighbors, handing out flyers, and begging for any information that could help. Their voices grew hoarse from repeating the same painful question: "Have you seen Elizabeth?" What hurt most was the lack of answers. Each passing moment without her deepened their worry. Fear became their constant companion. The thought that Elizabeth might be in danger haunted them. They felt powerless, watching days pass without progress, yet they refused to give up hope. Their fear was not only for her safety, but also for the possibility that life would never return to what it once was. The love they carried for her fueled their fight, even in the face of unbearable dread. Evidence uncovered. When investigators began piecing together Elizabeth Arellano's disappearance, small details slowly grew into disturbing signs. The first breakthrough came when her belongings were found in places they should not have been. Items that Elizabeth always kept close were suddenly discovered abandoned, raising serious questions about what had really happened to her. Each clue felt like a piece of a puzzle, but instead of leading to safety, it painted a picture of danger. Witness statements added to the unease. Some reported seeing Elizabeth shortly before she vanished, but their accounts hinted at tension, as if something was wrong. Detectives carefully traced her last known steps, marking locations and times, hoping to create a clear path that would explain her fate. The more they searched, the more unsettling the evidence became. What began as a missing persons case quickly shifted into something darker. Investigators realized that Elizabeth had not simply walked away from her life. Signs pointed toward foul play, and the weight of that truth pressed heavily on her family. The evidence not only brought answers, but also confirmed their worst fears. Elizabeth was in real danger, and someone was responsible for it. The killer revealed, after weeks of searching and countless interviews, the investigation into Elizabeth Arellano's case reached a chilling breakthrough. Evidence finally led detectives to a suspect whose life had quietly crossed paths with hers. At first glance, he appeared ordinary, blending into the background like anyone else. But behind that mask was a man hiding secrets darker than anyone could imagine. His behavior, his lies, and the trail of inconsistencies gave investigators the confirmation they had been waiting for. The discovery of forensic evidence tied him directly to Elizabeth's disappearance. Items linked to her were found in his possession, objects he could not explain away. Witness accounts further placed him near the scene during critical hours. Each new revelation stripped away his denials and exposed the truth: he was responsible. For Elizabeth's family, hearing the name of the killer was like reliving the nightmare. This was not a stranger from far away. It was someone close enough to gain her trust, and then betray it in the worst way. The moment the killer was revealed, the case shifted from a desperate search for answers to a determined fight for justice. Courtroom drama. When the case of Elizabeth Arellano finally reached the courtroom, the tension was unbearable. The family sat just feet away from the man accused of destroying their world, forced to look at the face of the one they held responsible. The prosecution laid out the evidence piece by piece, showing the jury how the chain of events led back to him. Photos, forensic reports, and witness testimonies painted a picture that was both heartbreaking and impossible to ignore. Each detail reminded everyone of the pain Elizabeth had endured and the cruelty of her fate. The defense tried to create doubt, questioning timelines and motives, but the weight of the evidence pressed heavily against their arguments. Every contradiction in the suspect's story was brought to light, exposing the lies he had tried to hide behind. For the family, listening was agonizing, reliving the details, hearing their loved one's final moments described in cold, legal terms. The jury watched closely, their expressions hard to read, while the judge kept order in a room filled with emotion. This was more than a trial. It was a fight for justice, a chance to speak for Elizabeth when she no longer could.